Well, it wasn't that long ago that the world essentially shut down because of COVID-19. Now, the Hantavirus is raising concern among the general public and health officials alike. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Newton. Welcome to 11 TV Hill. Hantavirus cases here in the U.S. are rare. According to the CDC, there have only been 890 confirmed cases, but that's between 1993 through 2023. That's a little under 30 per year. But the illness has really dominated headlines recently with the outbreak on the cruise ship Hondius. That outbreak killed at least 3 people. And as of now, there are about a dozen confirmed cases. Here in Maryland, state health officials are monitoring 2 residents who may have been exposed after boarding that same flight as an infected person who was on the ship. And now there are questions about how exactly this virus spreads and what's the threat to the general public. Joining me now to help me answer some of the questions, Dr. Geeta Sood from Johns Hopkins University. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have heard a little bit of everything. Some people say, oh, this is overkill and we're scaring everyone. Other people say, oh, we're over calm now. We should be more heightened. How should a general American feel, or anyone worldwide, about hantavirus right now?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a very important question. And I think this also speaks to how important public health and public health surveillance is, because these kinds of things happen all the time. We see lots of clusters of infections on cruise ships and in lots of other areas, and most of the time they just fly under the radar. In this case, this particular infection has brought a lot of attention, partly because it's new and partly because of its potential for person-to-person transmission. We have seen person-to-person transmission historically for this virus. Having said that, the amount of person-to-person transmission, again, based on what we've seen in the past, is very limited. So in general, I think that we don't need to panic. We want to be cautious and we want to be thoughtful about making sure that we aren't increasing the risk and actually reducing the risk, but not something that should make anybody lose sleep overnight at night.
In layman's terms, describe to me hantavirus, what it is, what it does to the body, and then how people are recovering.
So it is relatively new in that it was really identified in 1993, and we see it all over the world. So we see it in the US, we see it in South America, we see it in Europe, and there are different strains, and these strains behave very differently. So in China and in Europe, that strain tends to affect the kidneys more. In Europe and South America, in the US and South America, it tends to affect the lungs. Part of what's concerning about this virus is that if you do become infected, it can cause very severe infection. And the mortality rate is quite high when the hantavirus infects the lungs. So that, I think, is another reason that this virus has brought so much attention to the public.
Yeah, I think that was what's interesting. The cruise ship, we heard of an infection, and then for at least some people, it seemed like it escalated pretty quickly from at least as the news traveled back home.
Yes, you're exactly right.
Talk to me about the environment of a cruise ship, or say even people who are on a plane, where I know it was an abundance of caution. If I was on that plane and maybe not sitting next to someone, you should still alert a doctor. Why was that important for those folks?
So a lot of it has to do with modes of transmission and the environment. So I think you bring up another very important point, which is that transmission isn't simple. It's not just a matter of if I sneeze on you, you will get infected. There are so many other variables involved, including, are we in a enclosed space sharing air? Am I touching my mucous membranes and then shaking your hand? So do I have so much virus that I'm spreading it all over the place, something known as being a super spreader. So many variables go into transmission that it's hard to know exactly how each of these variables impacts the other. We do know that if you are in an airplane, you are sharing airspace for a relatively prolonged period of time. So certainly any kind of infection that can be transmitted through the air would be at slightly higher risk because of the closed space. Luckily, airplanes do have really high filtration and which help prevent spread of this kind of disease and other respiratory diseases, but it's not perfect, so it certainly makes sense to be cautious. Also, cruise ships are known to be
a lot of communal spaces.
Exactly. So there are a lot of places where you can get infected because there's lots of shared spaces, and you're in a confined space, essentially. I think it is important to note that this particular cruise ship, I don't go on cruise vacations very often, but it's a very small cruise ship. It was only like 150 people. So we're not talking a very, very large cruise ship. So it's highly likely that people on that cruise interacted with each other and shared spaces frequently.
Once they were disembarked from there, they were quick to go to Omaha, to go to, I think, Emory and Atlanta. Those places, that was the perfect solution, do you think, to head into some type of isolation?
Yes, I think before we have full information about the severity of the transmission and the severity of the infection, one of the wonderful things that came out of Ebola years ago is that we have stood up many, many centers across the U.S. to be able to handle patients who may be infectious from pathogens that we don't see very often or who could be very severe. So Nebraska has one of those facilities. Emory has one of those facilities. So they are trained and prepared and always ready to assess patients with these kinds of infections. So it's the perfect place to triage and to see patients that may be infected with a virus that we don't know a huge amount about.
Only about a minute left, 30 seconds or so. For people at home, listen, you said earlier, cautious when you're doing things, but it also reminds us, like we learned in COVID, hand washing. Cover your face when you cough. Basics we relearn because of things like this, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's extremely important, and Hantavirus is in the US as well. So I think having smart infection control practices throughout your daily life is important no matter what you're doing. So if you're going to be in places that have lots of rodents, Hantavirus is not the only virus that can be transmitted. Either make sure you wash your hands, use gloves if you're going to be touching infected material, and wear masks if you think that any of that debris is going to be aerosolized.
Dr. Sue, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Really appreciate it.